Alright everyone, how's it going this fine morning? It is a fine morning because Celtic are back this evening. Big game at Tynecastle, can't wait for it. We're going to be previewing that a little more on today's video, talking about a lot of the stuff that happened yesterday. It was a very busy day. Just a quick message, I won't labour it. We're very close to 11,000 subscribers. I reckon we can get there by kickoff. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please click that button. It's completely free. Get us to 11k and Celtic will score 11 goals tonight. Promise that will definitely happen. Right, big news yesterday that kicked off the day. Alistair Johnston has signed a new deal that will run until the summer of 2029. He will be 30 years old when that contract draws to a close. Obviously no guarantees he'll still be at Celtic at that stage, but there has been a bit of chat, I think, about him potentially being the next Celtic captain. Now, as John said on one of the videos we did during the international break, everyone is in such a hurry, and we should probably remember that Callum McGregor is the Celtic captain and will be for a significant amount of time. And he's playing some of the best football he's ever played, Callum McGregor, over the past couple of weeks. But I think it is a compliment to Alistair Johnston. He's captained the team in recent weeks. Was it the Dundee and Motherwell games before the break when McGregor didn't play? Johnston was a guy that we looked to captain us. So I think that's why there's been a bit of chat about it. And he was actually asked at yesterday's media conference whether he is a future Celtic captain. He said, "That's not a decision for me to make. We've got a great leader in Cal, thankfully, and he might still have longer than me on his contract, even after I've signed my new deal, but he'll be here forever. So no, I'm not really too focused on that kind of stuff. I'm just here to help Cal and the other leadership, the older guys, in any way possible. I probably talk too much to be a captain anyway. Trying to keep that huddle the one time I was captain short was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. So no, I'm not too focused on that again. I'm just trying to help out in any way possible. If I can take a little bit off Cal's plate, I gladly will." As I say, probably a bit too early to be looking at Callum McGregor's replacement as captain, but certainly great news that we've got Johnston tied down for like a good few more years, 5 more years. He's been terrific since he joined the club, a great fit all the way from his debut. I just love his energy, running up and down that wing, first minute, last minute, it doesn't really matter. So fabulous news. As I say, he did the press conference yesterday. It was his usual affable style, and he was full of lovely things. Strange comment to make, Hamish. Right, Brendan Rodgers also speaking to the media yesterday. A number of things covered. He was asked about Alexandro Bernabei, who has had an upturn in fortunes, let's just say, in his loan spell in Brazil with Internacional. Brendan Rodgers says that the club will look at Bernabei's situation when that loan draws to a close in January. It doesn't seem like Bernabei has any future with us. He certainly wouldn't think that would be the case. Hopefully we can get a decent fee for him. Sticking with left backs and on the contract theme, Brendan Rodgers was asked about the latest with Greg Taylor. I think he was asked like last week, and I think this is going to continue. He says he's hopeful a new deal for Taylor can be agreed, although he did make a point about it being a really important contract for Taylor at 27 years old. It got me thinking that it's on Greg Taylor's side and he's the one evaluating his options, which is absolutely fair enough. So Rodgers wants to keep Greg Taylor. He's enjoyed working with him. I don't know about you, I'm pretty relaxed about the whole Greg Taylor contract situation. I think he's been a terrific player for Celtic since he joined the club. If we're able to extend his contract, keep him there, I think he'll continue to be a terrific player, continue to be a really important part, a loud voice in that dressing room, which I guess is the intangibles that we don't really see as fans. So that would be great if we can get him signed up. Equally, I think if he feels at 27 that he wants to play in a more competitive league, a bigger league, then I'm quite relaxed about that. I think he is replaceable. I think Celtic could go into the market and replace Greg Taylor, potentially upgrade on Greg Taylor. So either way, I'm relatively relaxed about the situation. I don't think Taylor's the kind of guy either that will have his eye elsewhere and then like stop performing for us. I think he's extremely committed, so I'm not concerned about that at this stage either. Yeah, Brendan Rodgers also asked about young players making a breakthrough. He made the point pretty emphatically, actually, that if young players show the right quality, the right attitude, and have a little bit of patience, sounded very like Gary Barlow there, not planned, then these players will get their opportunity. He cited a number of examples like James Forrest and Callum McGregor and Anthony Ralston, and then strangely put Dane Murray on at the end. I think Dane Murray's only played once for us, but yeah, they will get their chance under Brendan Rodgers if they show those things. So that was his press conference. We also had the AGM, which took place yesterday. I was sleeping while this was going on, so I read through some of the questions and answers from the Q&A bit, which is always the interesting bit, and yeah, in the nicest possible way, there's a hell of a lot of nonsense goes on at these Q&As. Like some of the questions, while gave me a little bit of a chuckle, and I think a lot of good points were made in some of them, you are scratching your head a little bit. But yeah, people can find out about that. I think Football Scotland have put up like a full read through of what was said and what was asked and what was answered during the Q&A. So if you fancy a bit of light reading this morning or this afternoon, check that out. In terms of interest and stuff that was raised, there was a question about whether season ticket prices should be lowered at Celtic. Just given the huge cash reserves that we have, and CFO Chris Mackay took that one. He said the club do spend a lot of time thinking about ticket prices. He said that they froze the Champions League ticket prices, which, yeah, I mean, per game they froze it, but the prices still went up, didn't they, because it was a 4-game package this season rather than 3 in previous years. He says that in recent years they've increased season ticket prices in line with headline inflation, but he said that the club is actually subjected to greater inflation and all the other things that they do. So yeah, I mean, it's no secret, I think tickets are too expensive for a lot of Celtic games, but we're selling out virtually every game, and doesn't make it right, but I guess when we are selling out games, the club will feel that it's a suitable ticket price. But I thought that was a good point made by whoever that was. The similar kind of theme, although not really, there was a question about developing the main stand, which I think is like 100 years old, I read. And reading between the lines, it's fair to say that that's not something the club will be looking at while the majority of our matches are played in Scottish football. I'd guess that if we ever move to a better league, or if like the UEFA Champions League is expanded further and we maybe get 12 games, which I think is going to happen over time, potentially extending, renovating, redeveloping the main stand may well be an option. There was chat about the Celtic End project. Michael Nicholson, not quite as against the idea as I felt he may be. He said there does appear to be demand for an increase in standing space inside Celtic Park, but there's no specific proposal from the club to implement that at this stage. So yeah, we are where we were previously with the Celtic End. There was also chat about the fines we've had from UEFA. Peter Lawwell particularly scathing about that. To be fair, there's been no pyro at either of the last 2 games, which I think has been positive. There was stuff about the women's team. There was a defence of Mark Lawwell by his father Peter, and Brendan Rodgers as well. Brendan Rodgers very complimentary of Mark Lawwell and the work that he did at Celtic, even though it didn't necessarily work out. And yeah, there was a few other things, but that was the main points from the AGM, and it's never a dull affair, the AGM. Even when things appear to be going swimmingly at Celtic, there's always things that can be worked on. Right, I'm keen to move on to the big game tonight and find out all about our opponents. So yesterday I did just that by speaking to Hearts fan Adam Kennedy. He's been on the channel in the past. I always enjoy speaking to him, and I started by asking him how things are going at Tynecastle ahead of this one.
It's difficult. I don't think there's a definitive answer really. I think there's two separate elements as to what's going on at Hearts at the minute. Obviously, in the background, there's the Tony Bloom news and the analytics. The analytics kind of, I guess, acclimatization that's happening. We're in a new era. We're hopeful that we can maybe start to challenge the duopoly that is Celtic and Rangers at the top of the Scottish Premiership. But then you get to the present day and you realise that we are absolutely miles off doing that at the minute. So it's a tricky one. I do think that there has been a lift, a little ray of sunshine since the new manager's come in. But it hasn't necessarily translated to results just yet. It's been a real mixed bag. I think it was imperative that he got off to the start that he got off to, given that we've had some tricky games recently. But after Celtic and Aberdeen at Tynecastle, our league fixtures look a bit more favourable. So hopefully then we can see his style really come to the floor and hopefully pick up some points as well, because obviously we don't want to be in 11th for much longer.
Yeah, see, just on the Tony Bloom stuff, I'd completely forgotten about that. I've heard bits of it, and a lot of Celtic fans might be the same. Are you able to just explain a little bit about what's happened there and what the plan is basically going forward?
That's well above my pay grade, but I think, look, I to be honest, I'm kind of cautious a wee bit because I struggle to see what's in it for Tony Bloom, because as far as I can see, he's basically built Brighton into being the Premier League club that don't look in any real danger, challenge for Europe, are continuing to make striving moves forward on and off the park, really. He's basically grown them into a mid-table to better Premier League established club. And then he's got his case study, Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium, where he's taken them from the second tier and built them up through analytics, data-driven research. And he's basically given Hearts the keys to essentially create a Scottish case study, I guess, and basically if the big clubs come calling down south to see as to what this magic algorithm is, this formula that turns Brighton into a superpower, I think it's basically to strengthen his case, and then he can say, well, I've got an English example in Brighton. It's worked over in Belgium with Union Saint-Gilloise. Look at what we've done at Hearts. So yeah, it's a bizarre but exciting time, I think, for everybody that's connected to the football club.
So it's like data-driven stuff. Is that the whole thing with Brighton? Like they look at the numbers and stuff like that.
As far as I'm aware, it basically seems like a glorified Moneyball,
Right.
and
Okay.
basically bringing in young talent, coaching in a particular way. I mean, the managers that he's obviously brought into Brighton and has replaced Graham Potter with Roberto De Zerbi, Fabian Herzl now. They seem to find like for like, and it all seems to kind of work out despite losing key players and key coaching staff.
And have you seen any signs of this so far in any signings, for example? Is it too early?
It's too early. I think when we get to January, we might see a bit of movement. To be honest, I think Neil Critchley can only work with what he's got at this current minute in time. Anyway,
Yeah.
the rumor is that he can't believe how unfit Hearts have been or are at this
Okay.
current minute in time. But I also think when you're playing Thursday, Sunday, look, Celtic and Rangers have done it for years, but for a club of Hearts size and stature, we're not used to this Thursday, Sunday carry on. When you only play 3 games in pre-season to prepare you for that, I don't think it's anywhere near enough. And I think we're basically feeling the after effects kind of further down the line here.
It's madness. 3 pre-season games. Anyway, 7 games for Neil Critchley so far. 3 wins, 3 losses, draw in the derby. How would you sum up the start that he's made?
I think it's been, on the whole, pretty positive, to be honest. I was at Paisley, the game that Stephen Naismith lost his job, defeat to St Mirren, and Hearts were right, just awful, like rightfully booed off the park, terrible. And then it basically, I didn't have much hope from fixtures that were then forthcoming. I do like Neil Critchley. I wasn't a massive fan of the appointment. I'll be honest. It was met with scepticism, and I don't think I was alone in that. But it was bizarre because Hearts essentially announced that he'd been given the job through analytics, but hadn't yet confirmed the Tony Bloom stuff till earlier on this week. So it's basically kind of been looming over us in the background, but now it's all come to fruition. But I think he's made a pretty solid start, to be honest. I like his play style, or the style that I think he's hoping to adopt.
So what is
it's
that?
Front foot football. I'd say that it's on the front foot,
Right.
pace in the wide areas. I'm not going to say all-out attack, because I think often we could potentially be caught on the counter, and that's a bit of a worry in Scotland, where because you're expected to have most of the ball, teams will set two banks of four, and then all it takes is a break, and before you know it, they've equalised or whatever. But I do think that if he gets the right personnel, it could be a success. Yeah, I really like the play style. It's pretty much Hearts in the opposition's half, and that's all I can really ask for as a fan.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of Hearts games since he's come in. I watched the derby. I wish I hadn't. It was a pretty poor game. Bit dramatic.
That was not one for the neutrals, that, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
that was a tough watch even for me.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game. As I say, a bit of drama in the
No.
second half at least. And I saw your home game against Heidenheim as well. And you had chances in that game. It was fairly even, but I don't know, but you always just felt Heidenheim were kind of comfortable-ish. And they always just had that bit of quality, which I guess they would, being a Bundesliga team. But, a few good players playing well at the moment. I think Danda's always a player you need to keep an eye on. I quite like James Penrice at left back, getting up and down there.
He's been excellent. He's probably been our signing of the summer. He or Malachi Boateng. Right. Sorry, Hamish, talking about the Heidenheim game, I think that basically sums up where Hearts are at. Whereas the performance on the whole, you could say, is positive.
Yeah.
But in that particular game, I think what really kind of was just abundantly clear is our lack of cutting edge in the final third at the minute. They pretty much got the park and score with 2 shots on target. And you're left thinking, well, there's not much more we could have done other than score there. But they were just a cut above us on the night. And it's that clinical cutting edge, like I say, that we're lacking at the minute.
Yeah, I think Alan Forrest's playing quite well at the moment from the bits I've seen. He seemed to be doing quite well under the new manager. What about Lawrence Shankland, though? How many goals has he scored this season, and how much of a concern is it?
1, and it's a massive concern.
Oh.
Yeah, a last gasp equaliser against Ross County at Tynecastle. Liam Fox was still in charge of Hearts then. So in the 7 games that we've had under Neil Critchley, he's not scored yet. And he's actually been taken off a couple of times, pretty much on the hour mark or just after, which I think is quite ballsy from the manager, to be honest. He's obviously, Craig Gordon is our club captain, but Lawrence Shankland was last year pretty much the main man. I'm intrigued because obviously his deal comes to an end this season. He's available to talk to clubs and potentially sign a contract in January. So that is a bit of a worry. But if we're being honest, if he's not banging them in for Hearts, he's not getting a better move than Hearts at the minute. That's just the way that the cookie crumbles.
So, I mean, what has happened there? Do you think is it a case that he's is he struggling because the team's been struggling? Should he have left Hearts in the summer? Is he maybe just past that point where he's maybe not quite got that same drive, or is it something else?
I think, hand on heart, he was probably disappointed that he's still a Hearts player. I then think there's such an onus on him to provide our goals, that if he doesn't step forward, who does? I don't know if perhaps he's overthinking it, or he just needs to relax a bit more. I honestly, I don't know. I could not tell you. He does play his part in goals. He's notched a few assists here and there. But I mean, he had the Midas touch last year. God knows what touch it is he's got this year, because he just cannot hit the back. He cannot hit the back of the net whatsoever. I mean, the Heidenheim game is presented with a gilt-edged chance that I'd put my house on him scoring, and the goalkeeper saves. So he's doing everything but score at the minute, which is really annoying for both he and us.
But Celtic fans will know what that means. 1 goal all season, and then he comes up against us. He's got a good record against us, actually, especially at Tynecastle. Just thinking off the top of my head, I think he scored maybe in the last 3 against us at Tynecastle, maybe longer than that. So it's
yeah, that's right. He certainly scored in the last one, because I was shocked. It seems like we've played you at Tynecastle since we beat you 2-0.
But a long time ago,
played
though.
at Parkhead twice. Yeah, March. Yeah. It seems bizarre that we've obviously played at Parkhead twice since and not scored. So I'd love to say that it would be brilliant if Lawrence Shankland could get that monkey off his back, but can I realistically see it? No, not really.
Okay. So what are you thinking ahead of this one? Saturday night game, think first game back after the break. Tynecastle's going to be pretty lively, I would say, in a Saturday night. So I think it'll be a really tough place for Celtic to go. We obviously only have that small section of supporters as well.
Yeah, I wondered how long it would be before you mentioned that. Look, if we'd have given you the stand, it would have been absolute carnage. Yeah. I think it'll be crazy enough as it is anyway, because as you say, that kick-off time is an interesting one. I don't think there'll be many, if any, sober Hearts fans there.
Is it due to the rugby, the kick-off time?
Good question. Might be, actually. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That probably is why.
The rugby in Scotland are playing on Sunday, which again doesn't quite do it.
That's what I was going to say.
I think there's an A game. I think Scotland Air maybe playing on Saturday. So I heard someone saying like the B team for Scotland are playing on Saturday, so that might be something to do with it. But you'd think they'd just put it for 12:30. Anyway, I'm not complaining. It's pretty good.
Yeah, of course, for you it's even better. I would love to say that Hearts could go toe-to-toe with Celtic at Tynecastle. Love to say that we could give them a game. I just worry that it's going to be similar to Heidenheim, similar to Rangers, where we just pass up gilt-edged chances against a better team, and all it takes is for them to just go up the park and pretty much score with their first opportunity. I think the fact that there's only 2 teams that have scored less league goals than Hearts this season so far, and that's Ross County and our city rivals Hibs, and only Kelly have scored fewer league goals at home than Hearts. So that basically tells you. But stranger things have happened. There's been Hearts Celtic games where I felt even less confident, and we've somehow pulled a result out the bag. There's been games where you feel quietly confident, and Celtic turn up and scud us. So I really don't know what to expect. It's one of those interesting fixtures, I think, in Scottish football, particularly at Tynecastle, because I think we've obviously got a much better chance. But I honestly do think anything can happen. That being said, it's going to take a lot. Hearts need all the stars to align if they're going to get a result this weekend. My hope is that Celtic have one eye on the Champions League, because it's Bruges next at home, isn't it, in midweek? So that's a winnable game. As far as I can see for Celtic. So might they have one eye on that, but they'll obviously want to keep this league momentum going, 10 wins from 11 games, so it's going to be tough.
Yep, tough for Celtic too, though, I would imagine. Big thanks to Adam for joining us. And yeah, are we all starting to get up for this game? Hopefully a bit of the chat there has got you up. I can't wait for tonight, 7:45pm kickoff at Tynecastle. I think we'll be all right. I think we'll win the game, but I think it's going to be a tough one. I think, as I say, the atmosphere there, going there with that small section of Celtic fans, I think can have an impact. And I think it's going to be a good game. They're very rarely dull affairs, Hearts v Celtic. Even when the quality isn't great, stuff happens in the games. VAR, drama, red cards, etc. I would take a pretty routine victory tonight, but I think it's going to be a good game. As I say, 7:45pm kickoff on a Saturday. Pretty rare that we get that, so I hope you all make the most of it wherever you're watching it. If you're going to Tynecastle, if you're watching elsewhere around the world, enjoy yourself. We'll have a match reaction out shortly. That's a lie. Not shortly after full time. Well, I guess it is in the grand scheme of things. Sunday morning, the match reaction will be out 7am, and we'll chat to you then. Enjoy the game, everyone.